So next up, we are going to report on US politics. But before we report on what happened this week in the House and Senate, there are two unique things to cover. And first is, of course, the Chinese spy balloon. We're going to talk about that now. So reporting from CNN on the saga of the Chinese spy balloon. So on January 27th, a day before the suspected Chinese spy balloon entered US airspace over Alaska, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, it sent an internal report that a foreign object was headed towards US territory. The report, also known as a tipper, was disseminated through classified channels accessible across the US government. But it wasn't flagged as urgent warning, and top defense and intelligence officials who saw it weren't immediately alarmed by it, according to sources. Sources familiar with the report said that the White House was not immediately made aware of the DIA report, and President Joe Biden was not briefed on it. Instead of treating it as an immediate threat, the US moved to investigate the object, seeing it as an opportunity, as we said, to observe and collect intelligence. It wasn't until the balloon entered Alaskan airspace on January 28th and then took a sharp turn south that officials came to believe it was on course to cross over the continental US, and that its mission might be to spy on the US mainland. CNN reported on Tuesday that US officials tracking the balloon's trajectory recognized it as part of a known aerial surveillance operation ran by the Chinese military. We can see what that looks like over here on this image. Now, you can see that it is a helium-filled balloon. There we go. So it's a helium-filled balloon, solar panels to power the devices attached to it, and the instruments can include radar, sonar, and other communicational equipment, as well as high visual cameras. And this is how high it was. It can float between 80,000 and 120,000 feet, 24 kilometers or 37 kilometers in surveillance mode. This is coming from Reuters on that. Continuing on, officials say these balloons have flown dozens of missions worldwide, including half a dozen near or within US airspace. A military intelligence report from April of 2022, exclusively reported by CNN, revealed that the US had tracked previous flights by similar balloons. According to a senior official, when the balloon turned south, we immediately started talking about shooting it down. When the balloon entered US airspace near Alaska, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, set up fighter jets to make a positive identification, according to defense officials. Counter-surveillance measures were immediately employed by NORAD, according to people familiar with the situation. Biden, according to senior administration officials, was not briefed until 3 days later, on January 31st, when the balloon crossed out of Canada and into the continental United States. At that point, Biden asked the military to present options immediately to shoot down the balloon, officials said. Military officials said that it was not necessarily surprising that the president was not briefed until January 31st, given the expectations for the balloon at that time. Some Republican lawmakers have raised pointed questions about why the Biden administration did not move to shoot down the balloon before it crossed down into the continental US, either while it was over Alaska or sooner than that. Military and intelligence officials who spoke to CNN said that it wasn't known that the balloon was going to dip south into the lower 48 until the balloon was already over Alaska. Once it was over US territory, officials have argued that the benefits of gathering additional intelligence on the balloon as it passed over far outweighed the risk of shooting it down over land. In other words, being able to know what the kind of stuff it was looking for is monumentally more important than just shooting it down and preventing it from doing so. One, the instruments that are usually equipped on these balloons and have been, as we showed, cannot really penetrate any secret systems, find any hidden stuff that a satellite imagery cannot already do, which everybody uses. Go on Google Earth. You can look at military bases all across the United States on Google Earth with extreme precision. At most, what could happen is that since it is closer than a satellite, you could potentially pick up radio frequencies that may be being used for training exercises or what have you, and beam those back over. But given the distance, those radio frequencies would be pretty muffled. And not only that, though, if you know what they're looking for, you can jam your own frequencies or change the frequencies, frequency hop, whatever you do to encrypt your frequencies, mess with those parameters, and now you've afforded them ability to do that elsewhere because you now know how they're collecting it, and if they're having any sort of cryptographic breaking into those frequencies, you now know how they do it, and you can prevent it from happening in the future. Simply just have your people talk about stuff that doesn't matter and see if it's getting picked up by anywhere. It's as simple as that. Like, everybody that freaked out over this balloon, it's beyond me. I don't understand how you're going to freak out over a surveillance balloon. You get all that information and it's just like, okay, it's here. Just don't talk about anything secret. It's dumb. But let's continue on. The spy balloon incursion into the United States caused a diplomatic rupture with China, prompting Secretary of State Anthony Blinken's decision to cancel a trip to Beijing. On Capitol Hill, members of Congress expressed outrage at the incident and demanded answers from Biden administration. The Chinese government, though, continues to claim that it was simply a weather balloon that had blown off course. This was not the first time Chinese spy balloons have been over the United States either. Several reports this week revealed that the Chinese balloons entered U.S. space under Trump. According to Bloomberg News, numerous unnamed officials who served under President Trump have acknowledged that the Chinese spy balloons were spotted during his tenure near Texas, Florida, Hawaii, and over the territory of Guam. Balloons also flew near Norfolk, Virginia, as well as Cornwall, California, according to Bloomberg, two sites with extremely sensitive military equipment, such as aircraft carriers. We Are the Mighty published the first picture of the balloon this afternoon, the balloon as being have shut down. Let's go ahead and jump over that. Here is the balloon being recovered in the ocean. And here is another picture of said balloon. You can clearly see it's a balloon in this image. And here is them dragging it onto a small boat. Unsurprisingly, Congress convened hearings on the situation, and today the House voted unanimously to condemn China's balloon surveillance program as a brazen violation of U.S. sovereignty. The action was a rare and swift bipartisan rebuke of Beijing as questions mount about the craft, which the U.S. says is part of a vast aerial spy program. And finally, ABC News reported today that the Biden administration is looking into taking action against China for the surveillance balloons sent over the U.S. territory. A State Department official said that the administration is weighing actions to reprimand Beijing for the incursion into American airspace, as well as a broader efforts to expose and address its surveillance activities. So everybody that says that Biden's not going to be hard on China, well, we're going to see. The official added that the department was specifically considering measures against Chinese entities linked to its military that supported the balloon's operations. Arguing that the U.S. had sent a, quote, clear message to Beijing by downing the aircraft, the official said China's attempts to excuse the balloon's flight path were extremely muddled, asserting that Beijing was caught red-handed. So that is the spy balloon program in a nutshell. Again, I can't state this strongly enough or repeat it enough. Knowing what it was trying to gather is of great importance. And once you know what it's trying to gather, you can take measures to prevent its being gathered again, as well as prevent the measures that being used to try to gather that information. People want to say that, like, oh, it's got cameras so it can take really good pictures and all that. You can get a lot of that stuff from satellite images. You're not you're not going to get much more from a balloon that is basically in the stratosphere. Seriously, you're not.